Welcome to Random Acts of Wrestling, where I'm going to go through all of the wrestlers that I've met locally through WWE or AEW. I'm going to talk about how I was awkward with some wrestler interactions, where I was disappointed with some wrestling interactions, and where I was honored to be called an ugly piece of shit. Stay tuned and take a look at some of the wrestlers that I've met. First up, we have the Olympic gold medalist, Kurt Angle. He was a solid guy to meet, super quick interaction. He just mentioned that one of his favorite guys in the biz at the time was Finn Balor. Next, we have Rob Van Dam, Mr. Monday Nights back in ECW. He was one of my favorites when I very first started watching wrestling back in the early 2000s. Unfortunately, this interaction was very quick and just not that great. I had the chance to meet Randy Orton, the Viper, the Legend Killer. Again, a lot of these interactions are very quick, but super awesome to be able to meet the absolute legend and future Hall of Famer. He just talked about how one of his favorite people to work with in the industry is John Cena. Sami Zayn, very cool dude, super chill. Basically just looks like a skateboarder you'd find out in the streets in Vancouver or something, but had an awesome time meeting him in Toronto at SummerSlam. All right, we've got Sasha Banks, the boss back in WWE. At the time of recording, she's kind of unsure of where she's going to end up, but this was definitely an awkward interaction for myself. She looked at my shirt and said, "Hey, great shirt," and I just, thanks. I was super awkward for literally no reason, probably because it was the first time that I met a WWE superstar up close and in the flesh at one of these meet and greets. Still super cool though, she was great, did the too sweet with me. Baron Corbin, the man just towered over me. At the time, he was easily the biggest wrestler I've ever met in person. Literally just looking up at him, super good guy, thick, firm handshake, cool meeting Baron Corbin. The best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. Can't say the same about my meet and greet with Bret Hart. Very cool meeting a legend like that, but judging by the look on his face, he just looks like he's having a terrible time. All right, Daniel Bryan. So we got to go to a bit of like a spoken word tour with Daniel Bryan, a sit-down interview here in Vancouver. And we got to meet him right before the show. He's holding a little Daniel Bryan figurine that I got at Walmart for like $2 or something. I also told him the story about how I named my dog after Kofi Kingston. At WrestleMania 35, I told my sister, hey, my new dog, if Kofi Kingston wins, that's going to be his name. And the person he beat to basically give my dog that name was Daniel Bryan. He was like, hey, if I won, were you going to name your dog Daniel? And I had to tell him, no, not the case. Mike and Maria Kanellis of WWE at the time, they were in the 24/7 picture at the time, was able to have a little bit of fun with them as they were taking pictures with everybody else. Okay, little adolescent Tyler's probably drooling looking at this picture, able to have a meet and greet with Trish Stratus and Lita from the WWE, both Hall of Famers, of course, no-brainers in that. My buddy Herman, who you're going to see in a couple of these photos coming up here, he actually was in something called the Lita Legion during quarantine. She did a lot of really fun stuff on Twitch, and he was able to join some really cool friends during that time. And Lita did this thing where she would do a anonymous phone call to someone. I can't remember the reason, but Herman was kind enough to get me that phone call from Lita, and I mentioned that in our meet and greet. She actually remembered that instant. She remembered, that phone call and how I wasn't picking up on the first time because it was a unknown number. So Herman was texting me frantically, you got to pick up this number. I'm like, what the heck is going on? And it turned out that it was a phone call from Lita. Very cool experience and very cool to tell that story to Lita and Trish Stratus as well. Brandon Cutler from AEW. You'll see in the picture there, he's holding some cold spray, part of his gimmick at AEW. And I pretended that my shoulder hurt, and he went along with it, sprayed it on my shoulder, and even signed the photograph that I got from him that's saying, hope your shoulder feels better soon. Mr. Aleister Black, at the time now known as Malachi Black in AEW. I had the chance to meet him at SummerSlam meet and greet in 2019. He is one of my favorite wrestlers, has been for many, many years. I didn't really know what to say to the guy, just, that you're my favorite wrestler and all that. And at the very end of our meet and greet, I awkwardly asked him if I could have a hug. I don't know why I did that. He obliged. Thanks so much, Aleister, for going along with that. But nonetheless, really love looking back at this picture and being able to meet my current favorite superstar. Liv Morgan of the WWE. She's since gone on to win the WWE Women's Championship. And really fun picture. She at that time had a gimmick where she would color her tongue. Not sure how she did it, doesn't matter, but she obliged to stick out the tongue in the photo. Had some fun with that one. So quality of the photo here is not great. However, this is one of my favorite meet and greets of all time. Now, back in the day, I used to do some work for a local wrestling company, which El Phantasmo, pictured here, was a very big part of that company at the time. And, I never really remember if these wrestlers would remember my face or my name. It's, I wasn't around too much. I wasn't heavily involved. But when we're walking up to El Phantasmo here, he says, "Tyler, what's up?" I'm shocked. My buddies Nick and Herman are shocked. Like, oh my God, El Phantasmo of New Japan Pro Wrestling remembers your name. And this is the weirdest compliment I've ever received. It was a very memorable experience. What he said next. He said, "Yeah, of course I remember you. How could I forget an ugly piece of shit like you?" Ouch. So, obviously, playing up a heel character. Very fun, very funny. I got what he was going for there. I'm not offended. I was super happy to have that experience with El Phantasmo, and looking forward to seeing him at another show in the future, whether that's with AEW, New Japan, or locally here in Vancouver. What I decided to do when I met Noe Jose was have a little bit of fun. I shook my shoulders and, danced along with him because that was his character at the time. Toni Storm, at the time of recording, having one of the best runs of her career as Timeless Toni Storm. We got to meet her before an AEW Dynamite show in Seattle. Super quick interaction, but I did mention her shirt, wearing a Green Day shirt, let her know that that was my very first concert. So pictured here is a Pacific Northwest wrestling standout, Nick Wayne. He's been involved in shows in Vancouver, in Seattle, mainly in that area, training with a lot of guys in that Washington area. When again, like I mentioned, I was with a local wrestling company back in the day, and a lot of those wrestlers were from that Seattle or Washington area, and they would train with Nick when he was a super young child. So I got to see some of those videos on Instagram with him training, and I mentioned that to him. I was like, "Are you that same kid?" And he's like, "Yep, that was me." And so got to just share that, like, hey, unintentionally, I've been watching you since you were a kid. Like, pretty cool to see where you're at now, signing with AEW. Orange Cassidy, really great meeting him. It was very unexpected. He didn't even know that he was going to be doing a signing. He just kind of showed up at WrestleCon. We were one of the first ones in line. We asked him how much you were charging. He's like, "I don't know. I didn't even know I was going to be here. What am I charging?" He's asking his guys behind him. And really cool meeting Orange Cassidy, one of my favorite wrestlers over the past few years. FTR, one of the best tag teams in the world today. Super chill guys. They were just having a really great time meeting everybody in the lineup. And they were smiling the whole time, and not very often that you see that from wrestlers because they're meeting so many people. Really chill dudes. Great to meet FTR. Julia Hart, part of the House of Black. She's gone from cheerleader to this demonic, darker character in the House of Black. Was super stoked to meet her. She was very quiet, though. I think she was maybe playing a bit of character, or maybe she was having a long day. So I tend to listen to a lot of interviews on YouTube, and a lot of that time is spent listening to this man right here, Chris Van Vliet. When I saw that he was announced for WrestleCon this year at WrestleMania weekend, he was number one on my list. I told him that. He was number one who I wanted to meet this weekend for meet and greets, and I was super pumped that I got to meet him, talk a little bit about why I enjoyed him so much, and just a really nice guy, and super happy to see his success. The man that needs no introduction whatsoever, The Undertaker. This was an incredible experience to get to meet him. Kind of frustrating day. He was meeting like 500 to 600 people, I want to say, that day, and the company that was organizing this meet and greet, not very organized. It was very frustrating, but heck of an opportunity to meet the dead man himself, my favorite wrestler of all time, and what an honor to get to meet the legend. A classic wrestler from the early 2000s, the Boogeyman. Fortunately, he didn't have any worms to feed us. Super great meeting the Boogeyman. Adam Cole, baby, and DMD, Dr. Britt Baker, two of my favorites in AEW, and pictured here with my buddy Herman. He actually met them twice separately this weekend. He's been a follower of Adam Cole on Twitch for a long time, so he recognized his username, and really cool to see that conversation, and really great to meet Adam and Brett, two of the mainstays there at AEW. And tying in my last meet and greet here from Britt Baker to Mick Foley, the man of many faces. Actually, one of the things he said, he asked us, have you met Britt Baker this weekend? And I said, yes. He's like, oh boy, she smells great, doesn't she? What a wild story. What an interesting way to meet one of the wrestling legends of the industry. As you can see here pictured, he's got his regular face, he's got Mankind mask, and he's got the Dude Love setup. He did that for every single person he met. That is absolute dedication. And that is every wrestler I've met so far in the WWE, locally or in AEW, and here's to many more.